From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Welcome to Cronkite News here on Arizona PBS. I'm Annika Walters.
And I'm Patricio Espinosa. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we're taking an in-depth look at youth sports. Cronkite News has spent the last 3 months diving into the challenges young athletes face, including health, training, and bullying. Reporters will join us through the show to talk about these issues and how to move forward.
We begin with nutrition, or possibly a lack thereof. I spoke with active children and dietitians to find out how the type of fuel they put in their bodies fuels their athletic fire. In the average American diet, 60% of the daily calorie intake comes from highly processed foods, according to a 2016 American Heart Health study. In Arizona, 19% of children between ages 10 and 17 are obese. Registered dietitian Debbie Richardson said proper nutrition is a learning curve.
Starting that education piece with kids very early and having that as part of the school curriculum. It seems like a no-brainer.
Arizona State hosts a nutritional education camp in the summer called Camp Crave. The day camp teaches children the value of preparing healthy foods through hands-on experiences and cooking demonstrations.
All of our students that have come through, all the kids for our camp have been very receptive to the fact. They just need someone to actually show them this is what you need to do. This is just the basic parts of nutrition.
Although each person may have a different idea of what a nutritious meal is, Richardson said it's important not to demonize any foods to children.
It's really not saying no, but it's how much and how often.
Among the foods often looked down upon are fast food. In Scottsdale, the Desert Elite girls soccer team held a fundraiser in early July at a Whataburger. 20% of sales during the fundraiser went toward the team's expenses.
Not really fun as a kid to be so strict on like a healthy food diet that you can't have like a milkshake every once in a while or some fries. So like my mom and dad helped me keep a good balance.
You have to make educational decisions on what it is that you want to eat. So at Whataburger, I know that they have healthy choices, even like you can order French fries, but if you instead of getting the French fries, you can exchange them for apple slices. It's about being smart and taking care of your body regardless of where you're at.
A 2015 study done by the Pew Research Center found that 80% of parents feel rushed at least some of the time. This can lead to quick fixes such as fast food items or supplements that can pack a whole day's worth of nutrition into a single drink. Kiss the grapes goodbye.
For me as a parent, I feel like I want my kids' bodies to be fueled with great food, which would be that whole food, diet. That's pretty much impossible with my lifestyle.
So parents like 1996 Olympic gold medalist Amanda Borden at Gold Medal Gymnastics turned to products such as Juice Plus that aim to provide a day's worth of nutrition in a gummy or a milkshake. But former Arizona Cardinal and leader of Safe Football Camp Scott Peters said he prefers the real thing.
Look, I just do this. So I'm not a big supplement user. I believe in eating really nutritious foods, non-GMO foods, anything chemically, none of the preservatives, eating really whole foods. And it's hard to do this day and age because it's not convenient, but you're going to get more gas. The way I'll tell these guys, you're a high-performance vehicle. You don't put lousy gasoline in your car.
According to a study done by the Canadian Pediatric Society, lack of proper nutrition may result in stifled growth, delayed puberty, menstrual dysfunction, and increased chances of fatigue. In Phoenix, Annika Walters, Cronkite News.
And thank you, Annika, for that special report. And now we go to Susan Hurwitz, Cronkite News reporter. Susan, you wrote a story about this on the website. Why do we have to worry about childhood obesity in our country?
Well, according to the CDC, 1 in 5 children in America are obese today. That's a number that has since tripled since the 1970s.
And what would be the biggest takeaway from the story?
Something we really learned is that parents can lead by example. And if they're making healthy choices, then children are more likely to do the same, as well as education in the school system seems to really help.
Thank you very much, Susan. Thanks for joining us. Annika?
Even with proper nutrition and fitness, other factors can affect children's health. Coming up on Cronkite News, how too much play and a focus on a single sport contribute to injuries.
And is it too soon to hire a trainer? Would some parents think the cost could be worth it?
I think I finally found my hallelujah. I've been waiting for this moment all my life. about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Hallelujah, let that bassline move us. It's good to be alive right about now. I think I finally found my. Right about now.
And welcome back to this special edition of Cronkite News, exploring youth sports. If a doctor says the sport you love is hurting your body, do you stop playing? Cronkite News reporter Sarah Hedis spoke with a young athlete who plays on despite the injuries he has had in the past.
12-year-old Blaze Becker says he has only ever played one sport competitively, hockey. He eats, sleeps, and breathes the ice.
I've been playing hockey, ma'am, for ever since I was 5.
He gets up at 4, we make it to the rink. He plays from 5:30 to 7:15 with grown men. Then at 7:15, his goalie coach comes in. He plays again with men from like 4 to 5, and then he has a team practice after that. And then sometimes if we don't get enough schoolwork in, we wind up doing schoolwork till like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we're back here again.
But 2 seasons ago, when Blaze was 10, his daily hockey routine ground to a halt.
I took a step out of the car, a hard one, and it separated the growth plate.
Blaze was diagnosed with a minor growth plate fracture in his right knee. It took him off the ice and put him in a wheelchair for 6 weeks.
The doctor told me about my injury, that it's very common for goalies to get this injury at my age. And it's only because the tension on the knee going up and down in the butterfly, it causes stress on the growth plates, pulling it apart. It felt like a rubber band was attached to my knee, to my foot, and I couldn't pull it out. And when I tried to put weight on it, it would get pulled back and it started to hurt a bit.
The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons says that although rare, growth plate fractures can stunt or overstimulate growth, leading to one leg being longer than the other. The Academy says that 1/3 of all growth plate fractures occur during participation in sports. Tucson pediatric orthopedic surgeon Brian Nielsen says he has seen children overtraining, and the repetitive stress on bones that can come with that lead to growth plate injuries.
A growth plate, of course, is the cartilage plate in between the two caps of bone that allows you to get bigger. And the younger you are when you're more intense with the sports, the more likely you are to make that irritated and sore. Our bodies aren't really made to play things year-round, and they're doing that all the time, and it really hurts their growth plates sometimes.
Physical therapist Dr. Ruthie Jimenez says this year-round play that often comes with sports specialization is one of the biggest reasons for youth sports injuries, including growth plate damage.
Years ago, when a kid is in school or below 18, high school, grade school, they would play basketball, during school season. Now they're just specializing in one, and it's way too much for that age group. And so there's no rest for those muscles that need to recover in terms of just the one sport.
Blaze says that he has no lingering effects from his injury, and despite the break, Guy says Blaze still is passionate about continuing to play hockey.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, he's the one coming to my bed. Dad, we gotta go. We gotta practice. I don't want to be late again. Dad, you made me late last week.
You separate me from hockey, I'm gonna be upset.
In Phoenix, Sarah Hedis, Cronkite News.
So joining me now are reporters Sarah Hedis and John Arlia. Sarah, is Blaze just too young? Is too much of a little kid to push himself like this?
Well, Patricio, the biggest thing is adequate rest. I mean, your muscles need time to relax, and you have so much strain on your body, it tends to add up. A pediatric orthopedic surgeon we spoke with, Dr. Brian Nielsen, said our bodies just aren't meant for that kind of strain year-round.
Yeah, thank you. Good report, Sarah.
So, John, what kind of long-term effects can we see if athletes don't get proper rest?
We talked to a doctor whose patient has been a competitive swimmer since grade school, and she's in her 60s now, but she still feels pain in her shoulders from the repetitive swimming motion. And she basically had a chance to make the Olympics at one point, but had to back out because of the pain.
So Patricia, we found that athletes can specialize in the sport that they love, but adequate rest for their body is very important.
Yeah, whether you're a child or an adult. Thank you very much. Good report. Thank you, John.
For competitive young athletes, personal trainers can help them stand out from their peers, but does going to a trainer actually benefit children enough to justify the costs involved? Cronkite News reporter Kaya Wilcox met with athletes, parents, and trainers to see whether the training was worth the investment.
11-year-old Cameron Kester is usually the only girl playing for Desert Elite Basketball, a competitive club team in Cave Creek.
I don't want to fall back and become not as good, because I want to continue playing with the boys as long as I can. So I have to be faster, stronger.
In addition to a summer schedule packed with practices and games with Desert Elite, she pushes herself to stay faster and stronger by working with private trainers at Redline Athletics Scottsdale. She does speed and agility work and strength training 3 to 5 times a week.
Kids are coming in younger. They just want to honestly get better younger, and their parents do too. Sports are getting competitive earlier and earlier. We've seen a big switch from Little League play or rec league play. A lot of kids are now going the club ball route or the club team route, which means year-round.
Garcia trains children from the ages of 8 to 18 at Redline in over 15 sports. He believes training with a specialist is beneficial because of what he says is a lack of proper training at school.
A lot of kids aren't taught or instructed some of the correct patterns or even the right moves. We've seen it at the high school level. When we work with youth athletes, we want to instruct them on the right ways to do things, whether it be this is how you should lunge or this is what it should feel like to run.
Padraig O'Brien, a basketball trainer at Give and Go Hoops in Scottsdale, has trained children and adult athletes since the early 1990s. He said kids instantly get better from working with a trainer, regardless of who the trainer is.
For a young kid who's just starting out, like a really young, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old, you could probably pretty much go to anybody and your kid's going to show some improvement, because really what you're learning about everything is new. How you can't really screw that up.
Working with trainers to improve things like ball handling can help youth athletes, but is it really worth it? Prices for training can be high. Some trainers charge $140 per month or even $50 an hour depending on the plan. Cameron's mother, Heather Kester, believes her daughter's training has been worthwhile because the lessons go beyond just technique.
What we get from them at Redline is worth every penny. They not only teach her fundamentals of nutrition, strength training, that kind of stuff. It's safety, it's how to prepare herself to get stronger the right way without hurting herself.
Arizona physical therapist Brett Fisher, who is on staff with the Arizona Cardinals and has worked with other professional sports teams, says injuries among youth athletes has been an increasing issue, but he believes working with trainers can actually minimize injury risk.
I'm all for parents seeking out specific coaches for skill training. In fact, I think it helps for soccer, softball, baseball, because if you have bad technique, you're at higher risk for injury.
Heather Kester said her daughter's trainers have helped her learn her boundaries instead of pushing her too far.
It's okay to step back and say, I can't do that today, just because she is young and she's only 11, so she has a long way to go, and she needs to take care of herself. And that's one thing about Redline is that, and her coaches, is they're able to help her see that.
Parents can get sucked into a false hope that shelling out cash for training will help their children get a college athletics scholarship and possibly a career at the professional level. But the NCAA states on its website that only 2% of high school athletes are awarded scholarships. In terms of expectations for Cameron Kester, Heather said the decision to further her basketball career in the future is only up to Cameron.
Whatever she wants to do, that would be great. If she gets a scholarship, that's awesome, but wherever she wants it to take her, because that's her goal, not mine, so I'll support whatever she wants to do.
Kester understands that the money she has paid for personal training might not lead to a professional or even college career for Cameron, but right now her daughter enjoys it, and that's all that matters to her. In Phoenix, Kyle Wilcox, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News reporter Kyle Wilcox joins us to talk about the business of youth sports. Kyle, exactly how big is the youth sports industry?
It's a big business, Annika, a $7 billion business. A 2011 ESPN study found that 73% of 21.5 million kids who participated in sports were between the ages of 6 and 14.
And for some of these kids, Kyle, parents want to hire a professional trainer, a personal trainer. Is that advisable?
So parents could hire trainers because hiring trainers can help. They learn the proper ways to train, which could help prevent injury. But on the other hand, it can be expensive. And in that case, and it also doesn't guarantee a scholarship or even making a career professionally out of it.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
And young athletes often have to balance their passion with the pressure of schoolwork, not to mention making friends. Coming up in Cronkite News, how bullying and hazing not only affects the students' morale, but also the economy.
And how playing sports can have a positive influence on at-risk youth.
Heaven knows you're a dreamer. Don't hide it from anyone. Don't hide it from anyone. Hey, would you believe me if I said we are here for a reason now? This is our life. This is what counts. This is for us. I will go anywhere for you.
And welcome back to this special edition of Cronkite News. Bullying and hazing can have a significant impact on the performance of a young athlete, but sometimes even recognizing hazing is difficult. Joining us to help understand this issue are Cronkite News reporters Devin Conley and Eddie Poe. Eddie, you've been part of this whole thing and doing the story. How do you recognize hazing? It seems like it should be something easy, but...
Yeah, so we found from coaches and experts that they're overwhelmingly looking to work to make sure that their kids are able to understand the difference between bullying and hazing, and also able to distinguish the difference between what hazing is and what it isn't.
And part of this whole thing is the culture, especially in football.
Right, that's what we looked at, how athletes behave on and off the field, and sometimes how the coaches contribute to that behavior. We found that sometimes these rite of passage rituals that they've seen traditionally happen all throughout the season can actually be considered sometimes bullying and hazing and not even recognize it.
So then what is the best way to address safety in these spaces?
So our findings really pointed us in the direction of accountability within teams, so both players and coaches working to improve that communication both on and off the field.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's a great report. Really appreciate it. So how does being part of a sports team help kids in the system and support them socially? I spoke with one man who lived through a troubled youth, but involvement in sports helped him find success.
Trouble seemed to be the thrill for me as a kid. The trouble seemed to give me a purpose or a thrillful, like, oh man, this is an adventure that I'm on.
Growing up in Glendale, Michael Chavez remembers not only having to survive the West Valley streets, but his own life at home. His mother was an addict, and as much as he tried not to, trouble kept coming his way.
Got in trouble with the law with trespassing, got in trouble with the law with stealing. Gang life is something that was starting to be real to me.
Lucky for Chavez, he found the one thing he says would save his life, the thrill of sports.
Go. Sports was a huge element that kept me far away from the distractions that the environment brought. The distractions of games, drug life.
Michael has come a long way. He's now the sports director at Heart for the City, coaching and mentoring kids in the same program that once helped him. 17-year-old Tito Figueroa is one of those kids. Before joining the program, he says he had no purpose or role models to look up to at home. Today, lifting weights and playing football, it seems, have helped him find his way.
I really love lifting. I really want to finish high school and make my parents proud. And another thing is I want to start my career right out of high school, hopefully, and I want to be a firefighter. That's what I want to do.
Joe Eriquez is the founder of Heart for the City, a youth at-risk program he says keeping kids out of the streets and out of trouble.
We have about 180 inner-city junior high boys that play in our tackle football league. We pay for all their pads, transportation. We do the same with girls volleyball, so our coaches become mentors and father figures.
And that is how Tito was inspired, he says, to one day be a firefighter, his football coach.
He's the fire captain of a fire station too, so I feel like being a firefighter would be just as similar as being on a football team. Just you're with a group of guys, you have to have teamwork, you have to work together, and that's something that's really big in my life right now.
And how exactly sports make a difference with youth at risk? Dr. Eric Legg.
So I did a study and we asked college athletes to tell us about coaches in their life that were transformational. And then we analyzed that. What were the characteristics of those coaches? Several things we saw. One was they cared above and beyond sport, so they cared about them as an individual. But another one is that they were a role model. They were inspiring in their life, and the athletes looked up to those coaches as the person that coach was, not just as a coach. So it makes total sense that then the athlete wants to emulate the coach and follow in that same career path.
16-year-old Michelle Ma is another success story waiting to happen. She grew up without a father, and her mother was her only role model. Sports have changed that.
It teaches me a lot of character in life, like, I don't know, to be disciplined and always be on time and, just help leadership and everything in sports.
And Joe, how does that make you feel?
Well, we'll just put it like this. I'm a 55-year-old man who has the privilege to talk into kids' lives. That's how it makes me feel.
In Phoenix, Patricio Espinosa, Cronkite News.
What an interesting story. Patricio, what is the one thing you would take away from this particular story?
Well, it was great working on that story. And the one thing is that you can just see it in this kid's eyes. You can see how inspired they are, how they just want to be part of a team. And, take Tito, for example, that we saw in the story. He wants to be a firefighter. Why? Because his coach is a firefighter. So this kinds of programs really inspire the kids to just follow their dreams.
Thank you, Patricio. For young athletes looking to go pro, club sports provide an opportunity to get noticed by recruiters. Coming up on Cronkite News, how club sports present an opportunity for teens to go to college.
Fascinating. Sometimes I wish I wasn't so beloved.
Can't you see? Little girl got a hold on me like wow. Baby, I'm howling for you.
It's literally one for the history books.
Enjoy.
Welcome back to this special edition of Cronkite News, where we examine the world of youth sports. I'm Annika Walters. Many students play sports recreational on their school's teams, but that's not their only outlet for their athletic abilities. Club sports are becoming an increasingly appetizing option. Joining me now is Cronkite News reporter Greg McAfee to talk about this intensive alternative. Greg, what type of sacrifices do parents and kids go through for club sports?
Well, Annika, I talked to a bunch of different parents, and one set of parents individually I talked to spent close to $6,000 a year over 7 years to have their twin boys play club soccer for a club team based right here in Phoenix. And they not only sacrifice the financials, but they also sacrifice their time going on vacations. But in doing that, they turn those trips to club tournaments into their family vacations.
And that's a lot of money. That's like $47,000. So the question is, does every club every one of these programs, every sport, do they have a club option like this, or?
Well, it's different from sport to sport. Sports like football, there isn't really a club sport scene. So you see college recruiters going from high school to high school to scout players individually. But with that, you see these patterns start to form with big schools like in Arizona, Chandler High School, and Saguaro up in Scottsdale, where recruiters continually go to these schools to scout and get their talent. But with sports like baseball and soccer, they're able to go to these club tournaments where there's over 100 teams there. And so they might have not heard of a certain player, but they're able to find him at these tournaments, him or her at these tournaments, and then scout them on the high school scene as well.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
Good report. And all the stories you hear tonight are part of an investigative report called Youth Sports, Issues and Progress. The Cronkite News reporters who wrote and produced these stories are graduate students at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University. To learn more about these stories and our investigative process, please visit cronkitenews.azpbs.org/youth sports. And from here, you can visit the Cronkite News homepage anytime. And remember, for top Arizona news.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.